When we hear the word justice, our minds immediately go to courtrooms, to laws, to crime and punishment. We see it as an external system designed to regulate society. But for the ancient Stoics, this was only a tiny fraction of what justice truly meant. For them, justice was not primarily a system you submit to. It was a virtue you live. It was the second of the four great cardinal virtues, alongside wisdom, courage, and temperance. And it was perhaps the most important, because it governed everything about how we interact with other people. Stoic justice is not about retribution. It is about fairness, kindness, compassion, fellowship, and our sacred duty to one another as social beings. In a world that often seems to encourage selfishness and tribalism, the Stoics offered a radical blueprint for social harmony. They believed that we were not born for ourselves alone, but for each other. In this masterclass, we will explore this profound and often misunderstood virtue. We will learn why the Stoics believed we are all part of one single organism, how to practice justice in our daily lives, and we will face the ultimate test, how to be just even to those who have wronged us. This is not a guide to the law. This is a guide to being a good human being. To understand Stoic justice, we must first understand the Stoic view of the cosmos. The Stoics did not see the world as a random collection of competing individuals. They saw the universe as a single, living, rational organism, and they believed that every single one of us, every human being, every animal, every plant, every star, is an interconnected part of that organism. They called this concept Sympatheia, from which we get our word sympathy. It means a shared feeling, a deep interconnectedness. Marcus Aurelius used a powerful metaphor for this. He wrote, "What is not good for the beehive is not good for the bee." This simple idea was the foundation of his moral code. He understood that harming another person, acting selfishly, or neglecting his duties was not just an offense against someone else, it was an offense against the whole. It was, in a very real sense, an act of self-harm. The philosopher Hierocles created a practical model for visualizing this duty. He described our obligations in a series of concentric circles. At the very center is our own mind. The next circle contains our immediate family, then our extended family, then our neighbors, our fellow citizens, and finally, in the outermost circle, all of humanity. He said the task of a philosopher is to constantly work to draw these outer circles inward, to treat your neighbor like your cousin, to treat your fellow citizen like your neighbor, to treat a person from across the world as your fellow citizen, to extend your sense of kinship to the entire human race. This is not a sentimental platitude. It is a profound shift in perspective. It dissolves tribalism. It dismantles the us versus them mentality. When you truly believe that we are all limbs of the same body, as Seneca wrote, then acting with fairness, kindness, and compassion is no longer just a nice thing to do. It becomes the only rational way to behave. Justice, for the Stoic, begins with this realization: we are all in this together. So we understand the foundation. We are all connected. But how do we translate this grand cosmic view into our messy everyday lives? Pillar 2 is about practicing justice in the daily arena. This is where the philosophy truly comes to life, in our interactions with family, friends, and colleagues. The Stoics believe that great character is not built in grand moments, but in countless small virtuous choices. First, justice is fairness. This means striving to see people as they are, not as our biased judgments paint them. It means giving them the benefit of the doubt. When a friend makes a mistake, the just response is not to condemn their entire character, but to see the action for what it is, a single misstep. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to be tolerant of the faults of others, knowing that he himself had many. Fairness is the practice of granting others the same grace you hope for yourself. Second, justice is kindness. Seneca argued that virtues like clemency, mercy, and kindness were not separate from justice, but essential components of it. He wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for a kindness. Justice is not merely the absence of doing harm. It is the positive act of doing good. It is offering a helping hand without being asked. It is providing a word of encouragement. It is listening, truly listening to someone's problems without immediately offering solutions. This active kindness is the connective tissue of a just and healthy community. Third, justice is honesty. A Stoic has a duty to the truth. But as we discussed in our masterclass on wisdom, truth must be guided by the other virtues. Honesty without kindness can be brutal. Honesty without the right timing can be useless. A just person strives to be truthful, but also constructive. A true friend, for example, has the duty to tell you a hard truth, not to hurt you, but because they respect you enough to believe you can handle it and grow from it. Finally, justice is gratitude. Acknowledging the help and support of others is a fundamental act of justice. Saying thank you, giving credit where it's due, recognizing your dependence on the work and kindness of countless others, from the farmer who grew your food to the partner who supports you. This is all part of living a just life. It is the humble recognition that you are part of a larger whole. Practicing justice in our personal lives is essential, but the Stoics demanded more. The third arena is the public arena. This is our duty as citizens. Having recognized our connection to the human hive, we have a responsibility to contribute to its health and well-being. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, felt this duty more acutely than anyone. His role was not for his own benefit, but for the benefit of the Roman people. He would start his day reminding himself that he must act as a social being for the common good. This was his North Star. This civic duty is a cornerstone of Stoic justice. It means participating in the life of your community, whether it's a small town or a large nation. It means being an informed voter. It means contributing where you can, whether through volunteering, creating good work, or simply being a responsible and law-abiding neighbor. The Stoic senator Cato the Younger took this civic duty to its absolute extreme. He relentlessly fought against the corruption in the Roman Republic. Not for personal gain, he famously refused bribes, but because he believed it was his sacred duty to protect the integrity of the state. He made himself a nuisance to the powerful because he refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. Now, this does not mean we must all become political figures, but it does mean we cannot retreat into a purely private life. Epictetus would say that just as a foot cannot decide it no longer wants to be part of the body, a human being cannot rationally decide to detach from society. Our nature is social, therefore our virtue must be social. To be a good person, a Stoic must also strive to be a good citizen. This means using your reason, your talents, and your energy, not just for your own advancement, but for the advancement of the whole. We have now arrived at the most difficult test of all, the final arena of justice, the one that separates the apprentice from the master. How do we act justly towards those who have been unjust to us? How do we treat our enemies? The modern world often screams for retribution, an eye for an eye, public shaming, vengeance. The Stoic response is the complete opposite, and it is rooted in profound psychological wisdom. Let's look at Marcus Aurelius. He faced the ultimate betrayal. His most trusted general, Avidius Cassius, a man he loved like a brother, declared himself emperor and started a civil war. Marcus's response is one of the most remarkable displays of Stoic justice in history. We have his letters. He did not rage, he grieved. He grieved not for the threat to his power, but for the loss of a friend, and for the fact that Cassius had so corrupted his own character. His primary wish was to capture Cassius alive, not to execute him, but to forgive him. He wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This is the Stoic formula for dealing with injustice. First, you apply the compassionate lens we discussed earlier. You understand that the person who wronged you acted from ignorance, fear, or weakness. They are mistaken about what constitutes the good. They have, in a very real sense, harmed their own soul far more than they have harmed you. This insight replaces burning anger with a kind of sober pity. Second, you understand that holding on to anger, resentment, and a desire for revenge is a poison you drink, hoping the other person will die. It is a second arrow that you fire into yourself, over and over again. It chains your happiness to someone you dislike. It gives them continued power over your inner peace. Forgiveness, therefore, is not a gift you give to the person who wronged you. It is a pragmatic gift you give to yourself. It is the rational decision to protect your own citadel from being consumed by the fire of hatred. This does not mean you must forget what happened. It does not mean you must trust that person again. It does not mean you don't take practical steps to protect yourself. But it does mean you release the emotional poison. You choose reason over rage. You choose, as Abraham Lincoln would say nearly 2 millennia later, to act with malice toward none. This is the highest form of justice because it is an act that preserves the most important thing of all, the integrity and tranquility of your own soul. So we see that Stoic justice is far more than just a set of rules. It is a worldview. It flows from the profound understanding that we are all interconnected, all parts of a single human community. It is a practice that demands all the other virtues working in harmony. The wisdom to know what is fair, the courage to do it when it's hard, and the temperance to control our own selfish impulses. But here we find the most beautiful secret of Stoic philosophy. A just life is not a life of grim sacrifice. It is the only true path to a good and flourishing life, what they called eudaimonia. Why? Because a life free from the internal poisons of anger, resentment, and envy, a life filled with purpose, connection, kindness, and self-respect, is by its very definition a happy life. Just as Marcus Aurelius said, "What is good for the hive is good for the bee." By serving the common good and acting with justice towards others, we find our own truest purpose and our own deepest peace. That is the genius and the enduring power of Stoic justice.